Hendrik Jordaan from Klerksdorp is tonight's shapeshifter. Why would we get somebody called Hendrik Jordaan from Klerksdorp as our shapeshifter? He's the president. Suggests he's got an American connection. Chief executive of 1001 Voices. Now, 1001 Voices is a business of a family office. You've essentially created a business where wealthy families come, make financial investments, or allow you to make financial investments on their behalf in America.
Correct. Effectively, 1001 Voices is a private family capital fund.
Private family capital fund.
Correct.
Right.
As opposed to a, call it, typical private equity fund. It's unique in that it's backed exclusively by families. And not just families, but families of significant means, spread around the world, representing a series of industries that we're looking to invest in the continent of Africa. Families that are committing not only financial capital, i.e. money to invest, but more importantly, they're leveraging and committing what is far more valuable than their balance sheets. And that is their brands, their legacies, their relationships that they've built industry by industry, sometimes over generations, their intellectual capital, the knowledge that they've built in building their companies up. They're committing what we call three-dimensional capital, right, to these companies in Africa.
This is like Dragon's Den in secret.
Well, I don't know if I call it Dragon's Den, but it's a unique model that is designed specifically for leading families, and we believe it's a model that family businesses in the continent of Africa can really leverage to grow and build and expand in a way beyond simply getting capital to grow.
How does a boy from Klerksdorp do that?
Very good question. So my story in a nutshell is grew up, as you correctly pointed out, in Klerksdorp. Went to high school out in Natal, and then was fortunate enough to go to America on a tennis scholarship, the way many South Africans have made their way over to the States on sports scholarships, to a university in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Following that,
what did you did you have to actually study while playing tennis?
Absolutely. No, okay. That's at the time I had the choice between going to the Army or joining, getting a scholarship to go play at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and I elected the latter. I had the privilege of playing for one of the best coaches in the game, a guy called Dennis Ralston, who, for those tennis fans in the audience, I would recognize. He coached the likes of Chrissy Evert, Yannick Noah, US Davis Cup coach, and the like.
Where did it go wrong for you?
Oh, goodness. It started with my backhand. Okay. So we started with my backhand and then went to my volley, and it was downhill.
But you were a useful player, but you didn't crack you didn't crack the Grand Slams, you didn't crack the circuit, but you're a useful university level player.
Yeah, look, I was blessed to have the opportunity to go over there and competed through scholarship.
Did you ever play against anybody really good?
Yes, I did.
Who whipped you by the most?
Well, I guess quite a few people whipped me. But I'm the same year as, I guess the name the audience may recognize is Wayne Ferreira. Wayne was my year. Grew up battling against him. He's now living in Hilton Head in America. Grant Stafford, some of the folks in South Africa, names like Robbie Koenig, that's now a commentator for the Tennis Channel, Kevin Elliott, a lot of great tennis players that have come through this country.
But you focused on your studies clearly.
Yeah, not too hard though.
But you ended up connecting with families, and this is important because people, you've got to understand, when it comes to super rich families, they didn't become super rich by sitting on their hands and letting people and sort of the Oppenheimer family is now disinvested from De Beers, for example, and they'll have a family office that manages their money, and I think Jonathan Oppenheimer does that on behalf, and they've got a family office where they employ investment professionals. Now you've got a family officer based now in
our headquarters is in Denver, Colorado, but we have an office down the road here on Rivonia Road, office in Mauritius, and we're investing out of a $300 million fund, deploying between 10 and 40 million per deal. And say, when I use those numbers, 10 to 40 million, that's US dollars, we seek to invest in family-held businesses primarily, located in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, so this $300 million fund, but it's 30 families
Correct.
who contribute various amounts of money and say, off you go, Hendrik, go and find us, go and get us a return.
That's exactly right. And we believe that when you look at the private equity model per se, it does a lot of wonderful things. However, it's a relatively new vehicle. It's only been around for 40, 50 years or so. When you look at families, and families partnering with families, it goes back centuries. And the very basics that we're returning to at 1001 Voices is finding family companies, great family businesses, and saying, look, what do these companies need to grow? They need financial capital. They need relationships, sometimes into new markets with new board members, with new customers. They need the knowledge that the world's leading families have built, industry by industry. And that model, where it's all about, we say it's about three things: families, capital, and prosperity. On the one hand, leading families partnering with family businesses. Capital, not just money, but three-dimensional capital: intellectual, relational, and patient financial capital. And thirdly, prosperity. We're investing not only for the highest financial returns, but also to create jobs, to make a positive difference, to enhance the legacies of the families that invest with us.
Yeah, legacy is a big part of it, and there's a lot of pride, and there's I get that part of it. How do you get to meet these guys? Was Johnny Coors on a tennis scholarship with you or something?
No, I've had a blessed life, and one of the pivotal moments in my life was in the year 2012. At the time, I was practicing law, running the private equity practice globally at one of the world's largest law firms, a California-based law firm. And a longtime friend introduced me to a gentleman called John Coors. John, as many people know...
I just said Johnny Coors. I didn't know his name was John. Okay, right, Mr. Coors, John Coors, yeah.
Yeah, John's a remarkable human being, as are many of the families that have invested with us.
How old is John? Is he like fifth generation?
I've learned very, very quickly not to predict ages. He's a young, dynamic man. I'll leave it at that.
A young, dynamic like you, or younger dynamic?
Well, it's all relative.
Is he in his 30s or 40s?
John is in his 40s or 50s, okay. I guess. But
so
he's
third or fourth generation.
He's fourth generation descendant of a German orphan by the name of Adolphus Coors, who at age 17 was orphaned in Germany, was a stowaway on a boat, got on a boat illegally, made his way over to America, somehow made his way out to Denver, Colorado. And when he landed in Denver, he realized that his principal skill was brewing beer. He got a small loan from a local family that allowed him to purchase a little piece of land next to a stream in Golden, Colorado. And there he proceeded to build what is still today, and for those members in your audience who've traveled and visited the Coors Brewery, you'll know that it's the world's largest single brewery today. The story of that orphan who used the tool of free enterprise to start a company that has created literally millions and millions of jobs, created prosperity, created economic freedom to people around the world is a powerful story. We believe that if you could bring together a group of families of similar means, similar commitments, similar value sets, then you can use the tool of free enterprise the right way. You can have profound positive change in the world. I'm
just so glad Adolphus Coors didn't jump onto the Titanic. Because again, everybody's destiny would be so different. And that's how random some of these things
and
can
the
be.
fact that I had the privilege of meeting John, I've had a few turning points in my life. They say the doors of life swing on small hinges. Certainly one of the hinges in my life has been the conversation I had with John.
So is John Coors then and the Coors family, they like the anchor tenants then within this broad family office of 30 families?
They're one of our anchor families. I would say they're our founding family. Really just incredible commitment by them.
And once you got one, do the others go, oh, the Coors are interested, oh, and then the Smiths are, oh, and then the Rothschilds are interested, and then and then it all sort of feeds.
Absolutely. And we've built 1001 Voices not to be a simple fund. We've built it to be a movement. And it touches on, here's a great TED video that you may have seen about creating a movement. And it basically is a story of, it looks like it's sort of a Woodstock-esque setting outside, I assume, San Francisco, and a group of people sitting on a hill, and one person gets up and starts dancing and waving his hands up and down. And everybody sort of looks at him as though he's strange. Then the next person comes up, does the same, and then a few more, and all of a sudden the entire hill is dancing. And the lesson of it is the movement is not created by the first person who gets up dancing. It's created by the second person, because the second person makes it safe. And that really demonstrates the point that you alluded to. The more that join in safety and numbers, absolutely. And that's what we're about.
What do they invest in, I wonder? This 1001 Voices, the president and chief executive of 1001 Voices, Hendrik Jordaan. He doesn't sound like a Hendrik Jordaan from Klerksdorp, does he? But he's based in Denver, Colorado. The Coors family are the anchor tenants. Will he tell us the names of the other tenants? I doubt it. But let's find out where he invests, how he invests, and the particular interest in family businesses. That's coming up in a moment. So tonight, Shapeshifter Hendrik Jordaan will soon be spending 20. Who's on the $20 note right now, the US $20 note?
Harriet? Jackson, right?
What's his name? Jackson? One of the presidents.
Henry Jackson, I believe.
I mean, if you look at American...
I don't have enough $20 notes. Problem.
You only deal in hundreds.
Maybe dollars at most.
Because American banknotes have got sort of the founding fathers. That's where they're Benjamin Franklin and Abraham Lincoln and all of these guys. But for the first time, it looks like the first woman ever on an American banknote. I think it's the first woman on an American banknote. And certainly the first black woman. Maybe the first black person ever, we think, on an American banknote. And that person is somebody called Harriet Tubman. She was born into slavery in 1820 and escaped slavery in 1859 and became this huge abolitionist. And she was absolutely pivotal in the destruction of slavery in the United States. She's finally being heralded more than 100 years after her death and being given the $20 note to appear on. Now, listen, you've got these 30 families. You're not going to tell me any more than the Coors. Who else's money do you invest?
As you can appreciate, many of our families do take their privacy quite seriously. We have had some families that have agreed to be publicly identified, specifically two, in addition to the Coors family. The Belk family.
Don't know them. Coors are more interesting.
The Belk family also is a remarkable family. They ran what is the largest privately held mainline department store in the United States, significant department store business. Also, the Widger family from the Northeast and the financial services industry, a gentleman called Charles Widger. Both just remarkable families, and we're very grateful to have them involved.
So all of these families come to you and say, we're prepared to give 10 million, we're prepared to give 20, we'll give 5 million. And they come together and created this $300 million fund between 30 families. So it's a single fund, and then at your discretion, your team's discretion, you go out and scour the African continent looking for transactions.
Correct.
Now, where are you investing? Where are you targeting?
We've invested in two companies thus far in South Africa. One is a company called Red Sun Dried Fruit and Nuts.
But they not from Gauteng or the Western Cape.
They're in the Northern Cape on the shores of the Orange River near Uppington.
Okay.
It's a remarkable company started by the Kuilman family, a gentleman called Peter Kuilman and his wife Janice. They built just a remarkable raisin processing company that is primarily focused on exports. Export to the world some of this incredible raisins coming from this incredible
the dried
region.
Fruit from that Orange River.
It's amazing. And
how do you find them?
It's a function of two things. We found that in some cases it's a function of our team that has deep experience, that is out there talking to many companies. But what has been really interesting is word has gotten out a little bit about this organization of families. And we've had companies approach us, not only smaller family-held businesses, but also in some cases much, much larger enterprises, saying, look, we see value in the opportunity to partner not just with an institutional fund that might have a shorter-term focus, only a return focus, but we want to leverage the relationships, the insights, the networks of families, and that's interesting to us.
Again, family businesses are notoriously fickle. Family businesses can be poisonous. Family businesses can be fraught. This forces a professionalism and a professionalization of family businesses in a way, because suddenly you've got real money and real interest and real shareholders coming into, you can't run it like a family business anymore. Now you've got to grow up.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. There's been some incredible research done around family versus non-family firms and businesses. And what the research shows is that family businesses actually outperform non-family businesses with one exception. And that is when you don't have the requisite governance in place at the family business, it can break down. What we seek to bring to these amazing family businesses that we want to partner with and help grow is not only the governance from a corporate governance perspective, but also you can say the family governance perspective. When families that we invest in meet with these incredible families, sometimes 14th generation families, and say, how did you preserve the legacy for so long? That is powerful.
Is the focus on family businesses go back to Adolphus Coors and the fact that he was helped out by a family?
Absolutely.
That is
the genesis of what we're about. We think when you look at the construct of leading families around the world, leading families increasingly are distrustful of massive financial institutions. Increasingly, they're looking for safety in a peer group. Increasingly, they're looking for safety with other families that share similar value sets. So we really were crafted out of conversations with these families saying, what do you want? And that is what we're seeking to provide.
So Red Sun, the raisin people from near Uppington, and who else?
A company called Beefmaster. It's
we know them. They're huge.
They're a significant beef processor based in Kimberley. They're a significant exporter of beef. They were founded by the Van Rienen family, roots dating back to 1722. An amazing business, diverse, vertically integrated beef processing business, multiple competitive advantages. And what we're looking to do in this case is not provide only the financial capital in a drought, a very difficult time, where Beefmaster now is incredibly well capitalized, really well positioned for growth and expansion, when many of its competitors in the industry might be in a harder place.
I mean, are your investors not worried about low growth African economies, governance issues, the politics of many countries on the African continent? South Africa right now not in a particularly happy space. They've got big time horizons and faith.
What you've just described reflects the shift in sentiment that is visible in New York and LA and Chicago when one talks to the larger financial institutions. A lot of financial institutions follow the herd. If Africa is downgraded, if there's a bad news report, there's a very quick shift and everybody follows. Families, on the other hand, have the ability to take a longer term view. They realize that opportunity exists when others retreat. And that is why we believe today, when a lot of capital is pulling out of Africa, bluntly, families are uniquely positioned to go in.
You could invest all of your 300 million in South Africa. I suspect that might be eggs, one basket too many. Where next?
We're looking at a couple of opportunities in East Africa, short term. So it'll be a Southern Africa, East Africa with a balance into West, but shorter term, we're looking at Southern and East Africa initially.
Lovely story. Hendrik Jordaan from Klerksdorp. You would never believe it. Nowadays, Denver, Colorado, President and Chief Executive of 1001 Voices, an amalgamation of 30 families' money, decades and centuries of family legacies being poured into a fund, and that fund is being invested on the African continent with 2 investments so far. Producers, can we talk to Red Sun? Can we talk to Beefmaster, please? I think we have some future shapeshifters.